So today we are reading the verses from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 8, Chapter 13, verse 12 to 36. So what we will do is that, we will read uh, the Sanskrit for the first verse, and then we will read the translations from 13 to 26. But what I like to do is that I like to stop at certain points of the translation and then maybe discuss them more in depth. Tatra deva sutapaso viraja amrita prabha tesham virochana suto balir indro bhavishyati. Translation. Well, we'll read the synonyms first. Tatra, in that period of Manu, Devaha, the demigods, Sutapasha, Sutapas, the Sutapas, Viraja, the Virajas, Amrita Prabha, the Amrita Prabhas, Tesham, of them, Virochana Sutaha, the son of Virochana, Balihi, Maharaj Bali, Indra, the king of heaven, Bhavishyati, will become. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. In the period of 8th Manu, among the demigods will be the Sutapas, the Virajas, and the Amrita Prabhas. The king of the demigods, Indra, will be Bali Maharaj, the son of Virochana. So it's, from the, the first 7 cantos of the Srimad Bhagavatam actually talks about the family of Swayambhuva Manu, his sons, his daughters, his daughter-in-law, his pastimes of starting from Kardama Muni, Devahuti, his other daughters, uh, his other sons, Uttanapada, and all the Dhruva Maharaj pastimes of Prahlad Maharaj. All of them are connected to the lineage of Swayambhuva Manu. So then here Parishit Maharaj is asking, okay, so what about the other Manus? And so this chapter is actually talking about the other Manus. This chapter 13, like Canto 8, talks about the other Manus, and before that was discussed the pastimes of Gajendra. I think he was in the 4th Manu, something like that. And so now Maharaj Parikshit is asking about the future Manus, because now we are in the 7th Manu, the age of the 7th Manu, Vaivashvata Manu. And by the mercy of Maharaj Parikshit, we know now not only about the past and the present, but we also know something about the future. And then of course one may ask why is it that we want to uh, talk about the Manus, because the Srimad Bhagavatam is supposed to be about the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what Narada Muni told Vyasadeva, right? Why didn't you discuss the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead more directly? So the question may come, why are we discussing the Manus? So the answer is, we can, based on what I've heard from lectures from other devotees and commentaries of acharyas also, and also the general Vedic truth is that the supreme truth, the supreme absolute truth, the Sri Krishna Bhagavan, manifests in different degrees, in through the various gods, the demigods, the sages, and even the Manus. The Manus are also a kind of his incarnations, Manvantara avatars, and they all manifest different degrees of the powers of the Supreme Lord, but yet the individual personalities, but they also manifest the different degrees of the power of the Supreme Lord. So in that sense, they're also incarnations. And another reason is like personalities like Swayambhuva Manu, they are actually pure devotees. He's a pure devotee of the Lord. His in fact his devotion to is so great that even great renunciates like Maitreya Muni, Vidura, they are discussing about his progeny. Usually sannyasis, renunciants have no business discussing about the family life of persons. But Swayambhuva Manu and all is such a great personality, such a great pure devotees. that their progeny is also Krishna conscious. Their family life is also Krishna conscious. So it is a subject matter of discussion, uh, even for renaissance. So, and also the part, and another reason is also like Rupa Goswami writes in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that all the angas of devotional service, all the limbs of devotional service that he enumerated, in the Bhagavad active devotion, can also be applicable to the pure devotees of the Lord. So, for example, just like how hearing about the pastimes of Krishna, or chanting them is glorious, it's auspicious, brings about bhakti. So, in the same way, hearing about the pastimes of the pure devotees of the Lord, the places they went to, their activities, all of that is also supremely auspicious and beneficial. So, the pastimes of the pure devotees. So in that sense, also we discuss the pastimes, because the Manus are not ordinary persons; they're appointed by the Supreme Lord for His service. It's also very auspicious. Um, and it helps us. I think another part of the Bhagavatam, when they talk about the dynasties of the kings, of the Manus, Shukadev Goswami mentions that hearing all these auspicious names destroys our sins. And of course, we want to destroy our sins in a conventional way because we don't want to suffer. But beyond that, destroying the sins is also important, because what we can only enter into pure transcendental devotional service of the Lord once our heart is free of any contamination of the traces of sins. That is why, as devotees, we want to be freed from sin, so that we can engage in the Lord's service with great determination. So and also it is significant, the existence or the description of the Manus is also significant for us, because it shows us the mercy of Krishna. Although we, as conditioned souls, we decided that we wanted to be separate from Krishna. We wanted to enjoy independently of Krishna. And we came to this world. Krishna, being very, very merciful, he doesn't just leave us in the lurch. He doesn't just let us rot here. He comes. Prabhupada writes in the first canto of Bhagavatam that the Lord's mercy is much more than what we can expect to be. It's Lord's mercy. Krishna is so wonderful that his mercy is so much more than what we can expect to be. So therefore he comes in so many ways, through his avatars, his incarnation, through the Shastras, through the holy name. And he also extends his mercy through the Manus, because when we are actually born in the darkest of ignorance, but by the mercy of the Manus, the duty of the Manus is to give us to establish the law books, the laws for mankind. So every time a Manu comes, he revives the laws, and sometimes it is said that actually he and Shukracharya together, they devised they derived the law books for humanity in different manvantaras. So the Manus give us a chance, for us to be to know how to live a life smoothly, as much free of trouble as possible within the material world. It gives us some direction on dharma, how to live life, and so forth. So again, the Manus are also another example of the manifestation of the mercy of Krishna. So any comments or thoughts, or questions even maybe about this point about the Manus? If no, we can go on. Okay, so let's go on. Oh, Adipusha Prabhu, you had something to say?
Speak a little bit louder. There are 4 or 5 people here, and most of them are new to devotional service, so you keep it as simple as possible without
Okay.
Speak a little bit louder. We're glad to hear from you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't know that. So let's read the next verse, 13. Bali Maharaj gave a gift of 3 paces of land to Lord Vishnu, and because of his charity, he lost all the 3 worlds. Later, however, when Lord Vishnu is pleased because of Bali's giving everything to him, Bali Maharaj will achieve the perfection of life. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 7.3 it is said, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye. Out of many millions of people, one may attempt to achieve success in life. This is explained here. Radham Indra Padam Hitva Tata Siddhim Avapsiti. Siddhi consists of achieving the favor of Lord Vishnu, not the yoga siddhis. Yoga siddhis anima, laghima, mahima, prapti, prakamya, istva, vasitva, and kamavasayita are temporary. The ultimate siddhi is to achieve the favor of Lord Vishnu. So just some context here. This Lord Vishnu is the supreme Lord, he's God, and Bali Maharaj is his devotee. So, without going into too much detail, there was this past time. This happened a long, long time ago in ancient times. Bali Maharaj, by his power, had conquered the world, had conquered the universe, actually. And but he had usurped the position of King Indra, who is the king of the demigods or the devas. And so King Indra went to Lord Vishnu, who is the supreme god, and told him to help him get back his position. So then Bali Maharaj, so then Lord Vishnu comes in the form of a dwarf called Vamana and begs to Bali Maharaj 3 paces of land. And it is the custom, Vedic custom, that whenever a Brahmana comes, one should give him charity and offer him respects, because the Brahmana is like the teacher of the Vedas and so forth. So but then Bali Maharaj agrees to give him 3 paces of land, and with the first step, Lord Vishnu covered the entire world. The second step, he covered the entire universe, and then he asked, okay, now where should I put my third step? And then Bali Maharaj says, oh, I've already given you everything I have, but the owner of the property is more valuable than the property. You can put it on my head. So then Vamana Dev puts it on his head, and then he puts his foot on his head, and then he finally, he kind of arrests him and pushes him somewhere else and gives the universe back to Indra. So the story is that, okay, what is happening here? Krishna sometimes, as we will read the next verse also. Let's just read the next verse. So, with great affection, the personality of Godhead bound Bali and then installed him in the kingdom of Sutala, which is more opulent than the heavenly planets. Maharaj Bali now resides on that planet and is more comfortable situated than Indra. So sometimes the question may come, okay, if we give something to God or to Krishna, Krishna, sometimes very often in spiritual circles, people say that that Krishna will take away everything that you have, and he'll take away your family relations, your wealth, and all these things, that you can be more dependent on him. That is there, but more than that, what is actually happening? Like in this case of Bali, he took everything away, but he also gave him a better position, even materially. So the point is really not to be afraid of what Krishna of Krishna's plans for us, but to trust Krishna. Not to in some cases, he may take things away from devotees. In other cases, he may give all kinds of material opulences to devotees, because God knows, Krishna knows what is best for us. He knows whether we should, he knows each individual's psycho-physical position, and accordingly he reciprocates in a way that is best for us. So surrender to Krishna means to trust in Krishna, to trust in Krishna's plans. Not so much about I have to give up everything and I'll lose everything, or I have to live austerely, or maybe I have to, surrender means like moving into the temple. Those things may be expressions of surrender, but ultimately they're external. It varies for each devotee there. It's not like a cookie cutter case. And Krishna knows how to take care of us and what is the best for us. So in this case of Bali Maharaj, he took everything away, and then what he did was he installed him in a kingdom within the universe, which is far more opulent than even the residence of the King of Heaven. So that is Krishna's way of reciprocating with Bali Maharaj. So then he's able to satisfy his material desires, and at the same time he gets pure devotion to Krishna, and ultimately he goes back to Krishna. So that is example of the mercy of Krishna. And also just a side note, I heard this lecture by Hridayendra Maharaj about this, and he said that this is in the history of the Krishna consciousness movement, this is the largest donation that is ever given. the, the giving of the three worlds. And it is also, the history of the Krishna consciousness movement. Also, this is my addition to it. This Krishna is the largest fundraiser. He collects the entire universe for service. So anyway, to go on. Any questions or thoughts or comments about this? Okay, if not, let's go ahead. So
If who has a question?
Yeah.
He's wondering what the Manus do. What do they do?
Oh yeah, so the Manus, they are responsible for establishing the law for mankind. They write the law books for mankind. And they give guidance for humanity on how to live a smooth and successful life, materially, religiously, and ultimately spiritually as well. Okay?
Yes, Prabhu, thank you.
The next translation, O king, during the 8th Manvantara, the great personalities Galava, Diptiman, Parashuram, Ashwatthama, Kripacharya, Rishyashringa, and our father Vyasdev, incarnation of Narayana, will be the 7 sages. For the present, they all residing in the respective ashramas. So the 7 sages are also known as the Sapta Rishis, and in each Manvantara, during the reign of every Manu, there's a different set of 7 sages, and the 7 sages are the they are the heads of the gotras, or the lineages of the brahmanas. So assume that they're in charge of each sage is in charge of each particular gotra, and they're also represented by a constellation in the sky. In another purport, Prabhupada talks about it, but it's basically the Great Dipper, and each of those stars in the constellation represent one of the 7 sages. But what is significant about this verse is that, wait, we see some familiar names here, like Parashuram, Ashwatthama. What is he doing there? Because in the Mahabharata, we know that, in the Bhagavatam also, we know that Ashwatthama, as well as Kripacharya, when the war had almost been over and Duryodhana had been defeated, Ashwatthama, in great anger and revenge for his master, what he did was that he entered the Pandavas' camp at night. And while the Pandava generals and soldiers were sleeping, he woke them up, like he woke up Drishtadyumna by kicking him on his head, and then he stamped on his neck with his heels and killed him in that way. And then he killed so many other generals like Uttamajaus, Yudhyamanu, and those generals that are mentioned in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, who, Ashwatthama actually killed them. They were not killed during the war itself. The remaining Pandava generals, he killed them. And he also killed the sleeping sons of Draupadi, who were teenagers. He killed them in their sleep. And then he went back and slayed their heads to show that he had killed the Pandavas, because he thought they were the Pandavas. So what a terrible and heinous thing to do, it's like, and he killed so many of them brutally because he's empowered by Shiva, he couldn't be defeated. And Kripacharya stood outside the tent and he massacred anyone who was trying to escape. So the point is that, how is it that, he's one of the 7 sages? And also, not only that, he actually released the Brahmastra weapon, a nuclear weapon, a weapon that is like kind of like a nuclear weapon, to kill Arjuna. And later on he directed that, and when Arjuna countered that weapon, he directed it to the womb of what's her name, the Parikshit Maharaj's mother, Uttara. He directed it to the womb of Uttara. So in this way, he was extremely, he did some, although Brahmana, he did some extremely heinous sins that one cannot even imagine. But nevertheless, Krishna and Arjuna punished him. They defeated him. They cut off the jewel on his head. They give him all kinds of powers, and he was cursed to wander around, with a melting body, with a decapitated head, in terms of the jewel on the crown, for very very long period of time, until the next Manvantara, when it's completely purified, he becomes one of the seven sages. So it's actually a great story of redemption. I'm not sure if Prabhupada or the previous acharyas had commented about it elsewhere, but to me that's very, very intriguing how Ashwatthama was actually given a chance after a long, long time of suffering. Is actually given a chance to become one of the seven sages. And there's a great example of Krishna's mercy, that even sometimes we commit great crimes and great sins. If we repent for them, Krishna will give us a chance to be re-established and do some service for him. At least that's how I see it personally. Any comments or questions? Gaurasharan Prabhu, anything to add?
Hare Krishna. Dandavats, I apologize. Can I clarify? Is it Ashwatthama reincarnated, or the same Ashwatthama who now has been purified is now considered a sage? Or is it like, for example, Narada, and then his next birth is Narada Muni, something like that?
Yeah, so my understanding is the same Ashwatthama, because Ashwatthama is one of the Chiranjeevis. He's immortal, just like Hanuman, Vyasadev. So they don't, they have some benediction that they have some immortality. And it's the same Ashwatthama, to answer your question simply.
Thank you.
Also, Prabhu, can you also repeat when you were talking about all of Ashwatthama's atrocities, you were mentioning something about his having killed somebody and kicking or using his heel. Can you repeat that part? I missed that.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting story, especially it's quite relevant to what happened recently with George Floyd. So Ashwatthama, so Ashwatthama, he sneaked into the Pandavas' camp in the middle of the night. And if you remember the history of the Mahabharata, the one who killed his father, Dronacharya, was Drishtadyumna. They had some animosity between themselves. So the Mahabharata war, it was Drishtadyumna who killed Dronacharya. So Ashwatthama used an opportunity to take revenge. And the way he did it was that because it was nighttime, they were all sleeping. So Ashwatthama kicked Dronacharya on the head. And he beat him up. And what he did was that he put his heel on his neck. The Mahabharata describes that he put his heel on his neck. And Drishtadyumna was actually begging him, telling him that, at least let me die with my weapons in his hand. With my weapons in my hand, let me die honorable death. But Ashwatthama just basically brutally, killed him just like that, with his heel on his neck, and in a very brutal way. And in the same way, he killed many.
He did that to Drishtadyumna, or Drishtadyumna.
Yeah.
For killing his father, Dronacharya.
Exactly. Yeah, and also taking revenge for Duryodhana.
To take revenge for Duryodhana.
Yeah, because Duryodhana was already defeated, and he was lying paralyzed, after being beaten up by Bhima. He's just waiting to die. So Ashwatthama was appointed by Duryodhana as the next commander-in-chief, so to take revenge for his master. He massacred the remaining soldiers and generals of the Pandavas, and he wanted to kill the Pandavas. The Pandavas were not there, so he ended up killing the sons of Draupadi, who were just young teenagers, So it's very terrible, unimaginable massacre that goes against the ethics, even modern day, warfare. I mean, think about it, it's very terrible, right? But still, he was punished by Krishna, and now he's given a chance to be one of the great seven sages in the next Manvantara. So that's astonishing. Okay. So,
just one thing while I'm still here, I have to tell you how much I appreciated your definition of surrender as trust. It was so beautiful, because I myself, I have fear of, yes, I want to be purified, but I'm so afraid of what Krishna will do to me to get there, you
Yeah.
know? And so, yeah, it's about trust. Surrender is trust. I thought that was so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, I heard that from a class from Hridayanda Maharaj, actually. He said that devotees, we don't have to be afraid that Krishna is going to torture us, or Krishna is going to, make us, completely, Krishna wants us to go to the spiritual world fully happy and satisfied. He doesn't want us to go there unfulfilled. So the way Krishna will deal with us is perfect for us. So we just have to trust him, how he fulfills our spiritual desires, our material desires. He will do it in a way that is the best for us. So we just have to trust him. It doesn't mean that we are expected to, clench our teeth and just drag our
Yes, but Prabhu, how do you reconcile that with the fact that this is the material world? Nobody gets away without going through calamities. So when calamities come, how to not see that as Krishna? He's torturing me.
Yeah, I mean, there are many ways to see it. Like one way is calamity is actually good for us. It helps us develop ourselves. It purifies us, and it's a chance for us to become better persons. Even this is mentioned. This is said even by the secular people, even by the people who are not theists. They also say this. So what to speak about for devotees? So we can think of calamities as some kind of temporary situations that we have to go through, which will improve us, which will develop us, and we can use those calamities as an opportunity for us to become more dependent on Sri Krishna. And of course, it is easier said than done. It can be very distasteful when we're going through it.
And torturous.
Yeah, torturous. But I think as long as Krishna is in the equation, ultimately everything is good. And if anyone else wants to sort of add to it, please do. Maybe Adi Purusha, Gaurasha, really go whatever.
Yeah, because when calamities come, I want to be able to not see it as, okay, Krishna is torturing me to purify me.
Yeah.
Exactly. to how to trust during those times.
Yeah. Adi Purusha Prabhu, did you want to say something?
Yes, there's a slight shift in attitude. We understand the goodness of God, the wisdom of God, and how he's always trying to help us. And one Mataji who had a very traumatic experience with her family recently, she said, I have to understand that this is not happening to me, this is happening for me, right? When we say, Lord, use me as you like, I'm your servant. The three analogies are the potter and the clay. The Lord is shaping us. The gold must go through the terrific smelting process that burns away the impurities. And the essential self is never harmed. It can't be cut by the sword, withered by the wind, moistened by the rain, burned by the fire. The soul is untouched. Only our false ego, only our ridiculous attachments to the things that are going to cause us to suffer, that gets burned away. Like Aretha Franklin says, sometimes the Lord has to bruise you before he can use you. Sometimes he has to break you before he can make you. That there's a purification going on, but nothing really essential is ever damaged or injured. So if we understand who I really am, that is impervious, there's no fear, right? God is good.
Yeah. Thank you. Is that okay?
Really Gopal wants to say something. He's jumping up there.
Yes. Go ahead.
One of the things that we see over and over in the pages of the Srimad Bhagavatam is God's nature. And we see how kind he is, how loving he is. And when we begin to really take this in, then the fear of him being just torturous, just torturing us begins to subside. When we actually get to know him, if we just know that, there's going to be pain ahead of us, then that's yeah, that's very scary. But if you actually know who God is, his personality, through these stories, through what is his character, we'll see that he is always very kind to his devotees, especially. He's inclined to his devotees. We've been hearing about how he is very inclined towards his devotees, and he loves us. So there is that concern that even if we go through troubles, it's not going to be like a torture. It's going to be with him really guiding us and helping us.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I would like to have a question for you, Rupachandra, about the Manus.
Try my best, but you probably know more than me.
You were answering Vasudeva Prabhu that the Manus they give the ruling like that, but it seems like they set the standards for humans, but right now the humans are not following much.
Yeah.
In this Kali Yuga, it seems like other than a few people in India, which is diminishing. The general people are just not doing so. And to the point where we don't even know who Manu is. Like most of the humans in the planet, they don't know who Manu is, and they don't what to speak of believing in him or his existence and like that. So how can we understand that?
Yeah, so I mean, one thing that comes to mind is that each Manu is actually in charge of I think 71 Mahayugas. So it's a long expanse of time. We are just in a short period of time in this age, in this time of Kali, that the instructions of Manu. In fact, not too long ago, the law minister for India, the one who was in charge of the law when India became independent, he actually publicly burned the Manu Samhita. But at the same time, there's one way of responding to you, that we are in a very unique, special period, which is like this. But there also another way is also sometimes also the teachings of Manu may not just only be within the Manu Samhita. It could also be sort of for example, the books like the Ten Commandments. You'll definitely find similarities there, like some portion of what the Manu Samhita says. There's some similarities in the spirit of the law, in other religious traditions. It's also so it may not. My point is that it's not that it has to be confined to the Manu Samhita in a book. The teachings of Manu can also be spread in other regions, to other lineages, and so forth, to preserve the spirit of the basic laws of mankind. So that is one other thing that I can think of. Adipurusha probably has something to respond to.
Yeah, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, 15th chapter, Sarvashachaham Risanyasto, Matasmita Jnanamaponamya. You say people don't know. Of people who don't want to know, Krishna says, he allows them to go on with their ignorance and their reaction will be there. But people who want to know, what is the truth? What is the right thing? I want to be good. I want to be understand what is the best thing I can do with my life and my time. Then the Lord reveals to them, this is good. This will help you. Gives us perspective. Gives us guidance. So you're right. Some people don't know because of their choice. And these principles, they apply under any time and circumstance. With this, for every action is an equal and opposite reaction. As you sow, so shall you reap. You can't change them. And in the heart of everyone, this is already written. And we understand. Even a small child can understand, wait a minute, that's not fair. There's a sense, a residual understanding of what's right already there in the heart. And then when we really, really inquire and we want to know, Krishna gives us that access. Right? Does that answer your question really, Gopal?
To some degree, yes. Thank you.
I also have something to add. Like if you see in the Bhagavad Gita 4th chapter, Transcendental Knowledge, Krishna in the beginning says, oh, I instructed this imperishable science of yoga to the sun god Vivaswan, and Vivaswan instructed it to the Manu, and Manu instructed it to Ikshvaku. And then Krishna says something very interesting. He says, this supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood who followed the Manu. But he says, but in course of time, the succession was broken. And therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. It's not lost, but the wording of it is like as it is appears to be lost. And Krishna is saying that very ancient science of the relationship with the Supreme today will be, I'm going to tell you.
Right.
So in that sense, Krishna has actually filled that gap by giving Bhagavad Gita. So the essence of Manu's teachings, or what Krishna taught to Manu, is not different from the Bhagavad Gita. Because
Sure.
Krishna is clearly saying that science is lost, and I'm like speaking to you today the same thing. So in that sense, as you're saying, in the Kali Yuga, it appears to be lost, but Krishna has mercifully actually filled that gap by giving the Bhagavad Gita. And also, I had another interesting observation here. Shukadeva Goswami is speaking about Ashwatthama becoming the one of the 7 sages in the future to Parikshit Maharaj, whom he actually attacked when he was in the womb. So it's like the perpetrator of crime towards you personally receives the glory, and it's not an easy thing to actually digest. And we see Parikshit Maharaj even doesn't even address, like, make a word about it or anything like that. Okay, well, he's going on ahead in his life. So it's a very high level of consciousness to not make it an issue when the perpetrator of crime personally against you receives redemption. It's not a very easy thing to digest. So I can appreciate like Parikshit Maharaj exhibiting that mood here. Thank you.
That's a great point. Thank you so much for sharing that, Gaurashan Prabhu. It's very nice. Okay, we have 6 minutes left. Shall we just read the translations until 26? Okay, so 17 says, in the 8th Manvantara, the greatly powerful personality of Godhead, Sarvabhauma, will take his birth. His father will be Deva Guhya, and his mother will be Saraswati. He will take the kingdom away from Purandara, Lord Indra, and give it to Bali Maharaj. So Bali Maharaj will become the next Indra. O king, the 9th Manu will be Daksha Savarani, who is born of Varuna. Among his sons will be Bhuta Ketu and Deepta Ketu. In this 9 Manvantara, the Paras and Marichi Garbhas will be among the demigods. The king of heaven, Indra, will be named Adbhuta, and Dyutiman will be among the 7 sages. Rishabhadev, a partial incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will take his birth from his father Ayushman and his mother Ambudhara. He will enable the Indra named Adbhuta to enjoy the opulence of the 3 worlds. The son of Upashloka, known as Brahma Savarani, will be the 10th Manu. Burush Sena will be among his sons, and the Brahmanas headed by Havishman will be the 7 sages. Havishman, Sukrita, Satya, Jaya, Murti, and others will be the 7 sages. The Suvasanas and Virudas will be among the demigods, and Shambhu will be their king Indra. In the home of Vishvasrashta, a plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead will appear from the womb of Visuchi as the incarnation known as Visvakshena. He will make friends with Shambhu. I like that. Just make friends with Shambhu. In the 11th Manvantara, the Manu will be Dharma Savarani, who will be extremely learned in spiritual knowledge. From him there will come 10 sons, headed by Satya Dharma. The Vihangamas, Kamagamas, Nirvana Ruchis, and others will be the demigods. The king of the demigods, Indra, will be Vaidirtha, and the 7 sages will be headed by Aruna. The son of Aryaka, known as Dharma Setu, a partial incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will appear from the womb of Vaidirtha, the wife of Aryaka, and will rule the 3 worlds. I think I'm supposed to stop here. So thank you very much. So basically, I just want to summarize. We read about the mercy of the Lord being expressed to the Manus and his various incarnations and how he expresses himself in different degrees. We also saw the mercy of the Lord in dealing with Bali Maharaj, taking away everything but satisfying his material and spiritual desires, making him the next Indra, So, but trusting in the Lord, that how everything is good. And then we also read about how even someone as heinous as Ashwatthama was reinstated to do some service for the Lord in the future. So I think that's all I have. Yes. Yes, Prabhu. Adipurusha Prabhu.
Yeah, to boil it down to it, just a few simple points. An atheistic person with no knowledge of God is thinking that everything is going on by chance, that there is chaos. But the scripture describes how wonderful is Krishna, that the Lord is attentive to what's happening, and that he always is providing, either coming personally or sending representative to offer to mankind principles, dharma, for upliftment and purification. And there is order, there is government, there are supervisors empowered by the Lord to take care of things. And everything is going on meticulously, even over the course of great hundreds and millions of thousands of years. At any point in time, somebody's there watching. And inevitably, if we disregard the principles of Scripture, then suffering will come. But the Lord says, don't doubt that I won't complete the good work I've begun in you. Even this Ashwatthama, you can see, at one point he was engaged in nefarious activity, but then he was purified, uplifted, and engaged in the service of the Lord in a beneficial way. Glory to Prabhupada.
Jai. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Rupachandra Prabhu, for bringing out nice points from this section. I understand it was just a lot of translations, and literally the chapter is over right today.
Yeah, is it over? Yeah, I mean, at least, yeah, exactly. What I've read is finished, I think. Oh, I think we're supposed to read until 36, right? Oh, but we don't have time.
No, that's fine. That's fine. So, but I think the whole chapter is the rest of the chapter is translations. It's
Yes.
I understand it was a lot of verses for you to handle, but thank you for bringing out the essential points and discussing, and then also making it very interactive. Thank you. Thank you so much, Krishna.